Topic number one, I'm going to let you tee up, Brian, because you pitched me on this one, and I like it quite a bit. What do we got?
Yes. So I heard this on a version of this on the Cover 3 podcast I listened to. And I also thought it was relevant because I am a South Carolina alum. And this applied to South Carolina last season, where I want to know teams that are projected to finish in the bottom half of each power conference league that we think have the most potential to compete for a conference championship. Not necessarily win it, but I'll use South Carolina as an example. Gamecocks were picked to finish dead last in the SEC last season. Mid-February, they were right at the forefront of the SEC title race. I want to go power conference by power conference and pick a team that is projected to be in the bottom half that we think has the best chance to at least be in the mix in the conference title race.
Absolutely love this. Very fun game. Fun time to do this game. Do we have anywhere we want to use the projections of to like draw a line on who's in the bottom half, or are we kind of guesstimating that?
I think we guesstimate that. I think we're early enough to where there's no general consensus.
Okay.
I think we can guesstimate it and overrule each other if we think one of the teams is too good.
I like it. Okay, let's go alphabetically through this. Let's start in the ACC. Who's your sleeper?
My sleeper in the ACC, it's Syracuse. No, I'm just kidding. It's not Syracuse. If
I
you
did
listen
that
to the
last year.
Syracuse State of the Program video, I think Syracuse is going to be terrible this year. I honestly think it could be Notre Dame. Notre Dame was a team last season that was really bad at the start, improved a lot throughout the course of the season. And the way that Micah Shrewsbury plays that style is unique and difficult to defend. Looking at their roster, there's not a ton to really like there. I do like Marcus Burton a lot, though. And given how weak the ACC is, I think there's a chance for a team to really leap up there and be the fourth or fifth best team in the league. Like, let's say a lot of people are penciling in Louisville as making that jump this year. They're not in this conversation. But let's say things with Louisville don't work out. Virginia's transfers don't hit the way that they could. I think that leaves things pretty wide open, and Notre Dame could be a team that makes the jump just with style of play.
I want to believe in Shrews like massively. Like
year two was the year it happened at Penn State.
You're right. The Kerry Booth departure was ominous to me. And look, I'm not a huge Kerry Booth believer, so I don't want to like make the argument that they can't do it because they lost Kerry Booth. But to me, Booth was like the perfect talent upside year 2 breakout guy in a perfect system for him. And instead he transfers to a program where I don't even know if he's going to play that much. That feels really ominous to me. Like, how is Shrews not able to keep a guy who has the perfect stretch 4 skill set in his offense? You just don't want to lose guys like that. As good as I think Marcus Burton is, I don't really believe in anything else they have with Kerry Booth out of this. And Braden Shrewsbury was good too. Braden Shrewsbury is playing because he's Micah Shrewsbury's son. They would be so much better if he was not their second best player. So I want to believe in it. I just don't like what they did this offseason enough. Can we eliminate the teams that I'm not allowed to pick here? So no North Carolina, no Duke. Rattle off the other teams I'm not allowed to pick here.
I would say no Louisville, no Virginia, no NC State.
And am I allowed to go like Miami? Am I allowed to go Wake Forest, or are those upper half too?
I would consider them upper half.
Like I say, those are the two I want to go, but it feels really dicey to the cut line.
Yeah. Like they're going to be, at this point in the season, obvious holes with all of these teams. That's why they're projected to finish towards the end. It's an exercise to see, like, if things break right, where is there some potential upside?
Yeah. Okay. Am I allowed to pick the team that was in the Elite Eight last year that's not NC State?
You can pick Clemson if you would like to pick Clemson.
I'm going to pick Clemson then. I think, okay, PJ Hall was great. He was really great. How great was he, though? Like he's really
We
good.
had these conversations. We had these conversations.
He's really productive, right? I know he was really productive, and Joe Girard actually did open up a lot of things for them. I think them getting Chase Hunter back was insanely massive, and nobody's really talking
Yes.
about it. I loved him. I thought he was dominant in the NCAA tournament, not just good, dominant in the NCAA tournament run. Victor Locken is a dude like I really do believe in. I liked him a lot at Cincinnati, and I think like as a PJ Hall replacement, you could find a lot of worse players than him. To me, Shefflin could be in line for like an actual breakout season, though. I made this point when we did the PJ Hall NBA scout video with Riley. They actually went to Shefflin more in big moments than they did PJ Hall. Like when they
They
needed
did.
a bucket, it was like, here's Shefflin. And I think that means something. He could be really good. Outside of those three, I think there's a lot of unproven marks, but maybe this is Brownell getting over the hump and people are going to kind of write them off. Like the fact that they made the Elite Eight run, returned those guys, and aren't a top half team in the ACC is crazy to me.
Surely not a consensus top half team in the ACC.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be solid again because Clemson is generally always solid.
Yeah,
That that's the floor.
for sure. Okay, let's move to the Big 12. Again, I kind of want to define who we're allowed or not allowed to pick on the front end for this. So I would
Yeah,
assume no Kansas, no Houston, no Baylor, no Iowa State. Those would be the guarantees. No
no
Arizona.
Arizona. I also had Texas Tech and Cincinnati ranked in my top 25, so we're going to cross those off as well.
Okay, so we're saying available for this pick then would be BYU, Kansas State, Oklahoma State.
I think we need to establish Kansas State because I would since the Coleman Hawkins commitment, I would take Kansas State off the table or they're the easy selection.
Okay, so BYU, Oklahoma State, UCF, Arizona State, Colorado, Utah, West Virginia.
I'm going with TCU of that group. And again, none of this feels good because you're picking a projected bad team, particularly one led by Frankie Collins. But for what TCU wants to do, they loaded up the transfer portal with a bunch of versatile, athletic, quick guards that like to get downhill. I really think Vashawn Ellett, the Old Dominion transfer, has a chance to be a star in the Big 12 at some point in his career if things go well at TCU. Is there a world where Ernest Udeh Jr. finally delivers on his potential this season? Perhaps. I just think the way they play, there's enough chaotic agents on this roster to where maybe they catch fire for a month and get in the mix.
I don't hate that pick. They're coming to play Michigan. We got a home and home, so Frankie Collins has to come back to Ann Arbor. Make sure we bubble wrap the backboards, people. I'm going BYU. So you and I are on very opposite ends of the Mark Pope spectrum. We're gonna do this dance forever,
Yep.
Brian. I look forward to it. You know what? I'm gonna hold you to the fire right now. You told
Yep.
me about 2 months ago that nobody could get recruits to BYU. It's BYU. And then Kevin Young immediately got recruits to BYU.
Yep.
He's crushing it. And
He is.
Igor Demon might be really, really good. They're going to get Cannon Catchings. I feel pretty confident in that at this point. And to me, that's two guys who are supreme talents. Like Demon and Catchings would start almost anywhere in the country to me. If those are your starting wings around Dallin Hall and Trevin Nell, maybe you're working in Elijah Crawford, who's a guard I really like as a freshman. Mawat Mag playing glue guy role. All you really need is Traore to be a center. I think there's a world here where BYU is like very good, and it depends on
Yeah.
Demon being a star. But I think everyone's going to assume step back because they lost Mark Pope. They already just got a talent upgrade losing Mark Pope. So here we are.
There was a video that we did, you and I did, before Devin committed to BYU, when BYU had entered the mix with a rumored deal. Do you recall those kind of funds being available prior to Kevin Young becoming the head coach at BYU?
All that tells me is somebody doesn't know how to fundraise, Brian. That's not a good thing. Like Dusty May snapping his fingers at Michigan and getting more money than Juwan Howard ever meant didn't make Juwan Howard good at his job.
That's fair.
I mean, that's who's he spending on at Kentucky right now? What did he pay Kirk Risa?
Well, we're talking about maybe your fifth or sixth best player on your roster there.
Okay. What did he pay Lamont Butler?
I'm I am I love Lamont Butler. That was a good decision. Are you kidding me? That was a great decision.
Put everyone on Kentucky and everyone on BYU in a bucket for next season. Who are the three most talented players?
Talented or who will produce the most? Because the three
Talented.
who will produce the most are all Kentucky players.
Give me talented.
Talented probably it's a 2-1 split, and I think you could argue who's the two.
Okay. All I'm saying is Kentucky's two most talented players next season didn't start for their teams last year. We're gonna see. We're gonna find out.
Yep.
To the Big East. What is the sleeper in the Big East? Let's say no UConn, no Marquette, no Creighton.
Yep.
Who do you want to rule out outside of that? No St. John's?
I think you could probably keep St. John's. I would not pick St. John's.
No Xavier?
I think Xavier. If you're gonna pick a fourth one, which I think we have to pick a fourth one, I think a fourth one Xavier.
Okay, so those are the only four we'll rule out. Outside of that, pretty wide open.
I think of those other ones, I would go with I just had it. I would go with Providence. I like Kim English as a coach. I like what he brought in. You're getting Bryce Hopkins back, obviously. I'm probably like should give up on Jabri Abdur-Rahim by now, but I thought he could have been great at Virginia. The system kind of limited him. I thought he was going to be more consistently great at Georgia than he was, but I'm going to blame Mike White for that too. Like I think he has a chance to really thrive. Wesley Cardette from Chicago State, I think has a chance to be a really sneaky good ad for them. I really like Bensley Joseph as well from Miami. The pieces that were added to me all make sense and all have pretty significant upside. I think if Kim English is as good of a coach as I think he is or think he can be, this is the year to get the most out of those guys, which would put them, I think, maybe not in the mix with UConn, but potentially being in that second tier.
Yeah, I can see that. I think there's a lot of good options here. Like I think Providence is a great one. I think you could talk me into St. John's. I think they're probably the most talented of the options we're saying you can pick. I was even going to consider Georgetown here for a moment because I really think Malik Mack's going to be awesome. And at minimum, I love that backcourt. I landed on Seton Hall. They landed just a lot of guys that I believe in the upside of. Like I think Zion Harmon's really good. I think Scotty Middleton will be a great college basketball player before he's done. And you kind of scooped up a guy who I still think would have been really good at Ohio State. He had some good games in the second half of the season, but just became available because they fired his coach. I know Garway Dual was really pretty much a non-factor last season, but I still believe in his upside. And to me, yes, you lost Kadari to a team in your conference, but you did about as good of a job as you could have replacing him with a collection of guys that are still high upside shots for Shaheen. And I just like the way Shaheen's teams play. They play hard. Like,
yeah,
I'm buying his stock still really big. Okay, to Big Ten territory. This one's a mess. So many teams here, and there's no consensus top half. So, like, I would say no Purdue, no Indiana, no Illinois, no UCLA, probably no Michigan State.
Correct.
From there, I mean, everybody's really torn on who else you want to say you can't pick. No Rutgers because of the freshmen.
I have Rutgers ranked, so I would say no Rutgers.
No Rutgers.
Do we say no Michigan? Because if we're not picking Michigan, then I'm going to pick Michigan as my.
That's my thing too. Is I think like I have Michigan 9th in my Big Ten standings, which would be lower half, and I think a lot of people have them that low. But I think they would be my pick too if we're saying they're available.
For the sake of not both picking the same, I'm going to go with Oregon too. I think Oregon has a chance to. I think Jackson Shelstad has the potential to be a star and be an all Big Ten kind of guy, making a jump from a freshman to a sophomore season. TJ Bamba coming into that system too. I think the system is built to get the most out of a guy like him. There's some projections there with them and some of the guys on the bench taking steps forward, particularly replacing N'Faly Dante. They were hoping, I don't want to say expecting, but legitimately hoping to get an extra year of eligibility for him that they did not get. But I think those two guards, the potential of them as a duo, could make Oregon pretty dangerous.
I like that shout. You've talked me all the way into Oregon from the TJ Bama conversation we had a couple weeks ago when he committed. I like that shout a lot. I'll go completely off the board, like completely off the board. I'm going to take Northwestern.
Okay.
Carter and I did an exercise. We did like a draft, and we were both drafting. We were trying to just make like the best 10-man Big Ten team we could have.
Okay.
Northwestern was the only team that had two players taken in the first 10 picks.
Interesting.
Carter took both of them. It was Brooks Barnheiser and Ty Berry, and I think he overdrafted both of them. But Brooks Barnheiser was awesome last year. Nobody
He
paid
was.
attention. Nobody paid attention at all.
He
I
was.
thought if he portaled, he would have been like everybody wants him. Like 15, 7.5, and 3 last year. He was superstar. And that's as a second option. There's a world where he's just like a killer as the first option. Ty Berry's coming back from injury, but I loved Ty Berry and everything he did as a shot maker last season. They need somebody to be passable at point guard. Nobody's going to be Boo Booey. But man, even outside of Barry and Barnheiser, like they returned Nicholson, who started at center. They returned Martinelli, who gave them really good minutes. They returned Luke Hunger, who's their big off the bench. I think there's enough there. And this team, as weird as it sounds, like the Barnheiser Barry era, they've been winning. Like they
Yeah.
all they know at Northwestern is winning the last 2 seasons. And I think there's a world where everybody writes them off without Boo, but the talent is actually good enough to win some games.
I like that a lot. I like that a lot. I think Chris Collins has that program in a place where they're not going to bottom out.
Yeah.
And I think this year in the Big Ten, that's going to count for a lot.
Yep, 100%. Okay, to the SEC. This is our final power conference because we
Yep.
don't have a Pac-12 anymore. We're going to say no Alabama, no Auburn,
No Auburn.
no
No,
Kentucky, no Arkansas,
correct.
no Florida,
I would say no Florida because their general consensus top half. No Tennessee.
no Tennessee.
I think
Okay,
everybody else I'm okay with.
everybody else is fair. A lot of good options here too. I love the SEC this year. Who you going with?
Going to pick a team that did not win an SEC game last season. I think Missouri has a chance to have a real bounce back.
Oh,
I do. I like Tony Perkins a lot. I like Mark Mitchell's potential in the system a lot. They just announced that Caleb Grill is going to be able to come back for another year. He got medical hardship. I think that's good. Tamar Bates, I think there's a role for him. I don't know about the bench, but there's enough pieces. I think you can get something out of somebody there. I don't know how good the bottom of the SEC is, to be perfectly honest. And I honestly think that South Carolina is a good candidate to do this again if they get good point guard play. But I am not going to count on Lamont Paris catching lightning in a bottle twice. I think this will be more regression with South Carolina than maintain, which is from a Gamecock alumni perspective, totally fine. But I do think a lot went wrong for Missouri last year that they addressed or tried to address.
fair points. I can't buy into a Tony Perkins, Tamar Bates team. Like, and those guys, they could be really good. And I know they have other guys off the bench, like Jacob Cruz and Marquez Warwick could be big time scorers for these guys. But
Yeah.
to me, for the most part, Perkins and Bates like failed. They flunked out of the Big Ten at their various programs, and now it's like they're gonna save Dennis Gate. I don't know about that. I do like the Mark Mitchell ad, though. I think there's a lot of good options. You mentioned South Carolina. That's your team.
Mhm.
Jamari Thomas, I really believe in. I did a lot of Field of 68 mid-major stuff for that account this year, and those like he was constantly winning Player of the Week. Um, and Murray Boyle is going to be awesome, as you know.
I
I
think. I don't know. I think. I have
really,
concerns. He
really
he last season was a bit of a one-trick pony for me.
okay, interesting. Okay, man, there's so many I want to choose here. Like I'm going to shout Ole Miss, but not pick them. They have so many double figure scorers, and Chris Beard's just a great coach, even if it
Yeah.
feels gross. The one I'm going to pick is completely boomer bust, but I'm going to do Mississippi State.
Okay.
I think them keeping Josh Hubbard was pretty massive
Love
because
Josh Hubbard.
didn't think he would stay. He's back. You pair him with Josh Hubbard light, Kanye Clary, who, yeah, there's issues with Kanye, but if you believe in Kansas State, I think you should believe in Mississippi State because Clary, Kugel, and Hubbard is an absurdly talented guard trio that
Yes.
will match up with like the Arkansas of this conference. It just needs to hit, but I think Jans has kind of earned the benefit of the doubt at this point to
Yeah.
at least give him a shot. I think he's a good coach. They need a front court answer, and I don't know what the answer will be, but I trust Mississippi State's talent to be the upside pick here.
I think that's fair. I Josh Hubbard, we might get to this. We may be hearing Josh Hubbard's name a little bit later in the episode.
Interesting. All right. That was a really fun exercise.